I'm focused on this theory cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this wild segment from Piers Morgan's uncensored show. You know, he basically has like a Jerry Springer kind of political setup where you have all these people, and sometimes they'll have like really despicable people on there, but they get them ratings. They'll get to those arguments and stuff. And one influencer who really went viral before for having some seriously crazy takes or really controversial takes, Lily Gaddis. She admitted on Piers Morgan that she says the N-word all the time. And so I want to talk about this clip and then another clip as well. And this is still all stemming from the Shiloh Hendrix thing that happened last week. We talked about it. You know, everybody's been talking about it. She raised over $700,000. I don't know if it's more than that now. But people were giving to her because people were like revenge giving to her after people gave to the kid who killed Austin Metcalf. So it's a odd day, and people are really clamoring from conversations to want to say the N-word. And then there's some people saying it's just a word. And so I've got lots of thoughts. I don't know if everybody's going to agree with me about it today. I also want to talk about the Trump administration is going to be defending Biden's abortion pill rules in a Texas case. So pro-life community unhappy about that, which Donald Trump, said he didn't plan to change that on the campaign trail. So people shouldn't be terribly surprised, I guess. But there was a recent report that we read about, I think it was last week. I don't think it was Monday, about a study that came out about it being more dangerous than what was previously reported. And I don't know if that's going to find its way into the arguments at all, but we will cover such things. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream. Run my side, all the good stuff you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merch that's available on the website, and you guys can also check out my different books and stuff that are available. If you go to the website, you guys can see some of my books. There's a banner that'll take you to my book website, but there's a link in the description that'll take you to a page with, on Amazon that has all the stuff on there, basically. So that's an easy way to find all the stuff. And I've been thinking a lot about with the topics of like Shiloh Hendrix and the N-word and all that stuff, because I do use it in my historical fiction book, and I might go through all the kind of the background of me even deciding to use that, because it was a big discussion, even me putting it in there. So we got lots to discuss for sure. I do want to remind you guys that I will be out next week. I won't be like gone all next week, but I just won't be live. I have Motor City Comic Con coming up next week. If you're in the Metro Detroit area, or you like travel or whatever, if you plan to coming to the con, I will be there. I will be in Artist Alley. I'll be in I-3, and my sister will be in I-4. So we'll be next to each other as usual. And she'll be selling some of her art, and I will be selling my books, and hope that some of you guys come. Looking forward to it. And we have to go a day early to set up and stuff, and I'm just going to be preparing for it. It's a big con, so that's just what I'll be taking my time for next week. And I don't usually take breaks, even like during the holidays. I'm mostly with you guys. I usually just only take off like when I'm sick or something, or these conventions or whatever. So I'm just going to take the week. So give that to myself. I hope you guys don't mind. And hopefully there's no news that's like really juicy or anything like that. And that I'm not like clamoring to be like, I know I was gone, but I'm back once again. Cause I've definitely done that before. So anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys keep me in your prayers that everything turns out really well. Also keep just the world in prayers, man. Pakistan and India are going at it, and they both are nuclear powers. And I guess technically we should be on India's side. I do know, I don't personally know people in Pakistan, but my dad did a lot of mission work in Pakistan for the Christians over there and converted a lot of people to Christianity. He would work with a team and they would go to different unchurched villages and they set up a projector and he would preach to them over Skype, which Skype no longer exists too. They just got rid of Skype, by the way. But he would minister to them over Skype and pray for people over Skype, and people would convert, and then they would, direct people to go to different churches in the area and stuff. But when my dad first started doing it, terrorists came in and threatened the lives of the workers of the and they were saying, if you guys keep doing this, we're going to kill you. And they like cut the lines and stuff, and but they kept continuing on, and they tens of thousands of people. So I'm thinking about those families, so I just pray things can de-escalate and people continue to find Christ. And but war is a terrible, terrible thing. And it's obviously very terrible when you got nations going at it and they both have nukes. So everybody has to worry about it and worry about how it's going to drag in everybody else. But yeah, it's just a terrible situation. But anyway, let's get to the tea, to the feisty little tea. So just to backtrack, and hello to everyone in the comments, to those of you watching live, to those of you who watch back, always like to say hello. Thank you. I see you guys in the chat. So we all know about the kid who killed Austin Metcalf, and over asking him to move and get out of the tent. And he had a big fundraiser online and raised a bunch of money. And people were upset about that. And there's a bunch of racist comments in there about why people are giving to raise money for him. Austin Metcalf's father begged for it not to be about politics, begged for it not to be about race. I don't know that it had anything to do with race. I'm still baffled on the sort of attitude this young man had. His pride, his ego about being touched, but he's trying to claim self-defense. Other people are trying to ignorantly, I think, claim self-defense, or they're really, really reaching. But even him allegedly clasping onto his bag saying, touch me and see what happens, is an instigation. So he's really not going to be able to successfully, I think, claim self-defense. And obviously stabbing someone through the heart over being touched, that's a escalation of violence that is just unwarranted. And in a just world, he's going to go to jail for a very long time. I have, made a plea to his parents, not that they've seen me or whatever, that their son is going to go to jail. They need to get rid of their clown representation and not make this about social media or anything like that. Just like keep your head down and just, be remorseful for the family. You can fight for your son all you want, but you should, just try to do what's best legally for your child and get rid of the clown show, like the press conference they had and, the activists behind it, and calling out Austin Metcalf's dad because he came to the press conference. And so many things are crazy about that story. But in retaliation to him raising a lot of money, you had people deciding to give to Shiloh Hendrix, and we didn't play the video because I didn't have time to bleep out that many N-words on there, but she said it a lot. she was at a park with her child and another child who does not look like he's 5, but he's a child, was allegedly going through her diaper bag and taking some of her son's things. And she called him the N-word. There was a third-party person there who started recording her and said, hey, you just called him that. And she said, he's acting like an N-word, so I called him an N-word. And she started, saying it again and again and again on camera, just 10 toes down, double down. So he posted it online, obviously intending to make her famous and make it go viral and, get her in trouble. And there were different influencers who, of course, pointed her out, wanted her canceled. And the NAACP want charges against her. I don't know what kind of charge. That's a lot. That's stupid. I've made the case that he shouldn't have recorded her, and this, trying to judge her by the internet to just destroy her, shouldn't be a thing. I said, I probably should have went down is the mother, the parent being like, you said what to my child? And they would have threw hands and that would have been the end of it. Like, that's what I think probably should happen. But that's not what happened. But people started to dox her allegedly and threaten her and her safety and her other kids and stuff, which is also crazy to me, her looking in the camera and repeatedly saying the N-word, not thinking about the repercussions of her family. That's wild to me. But she did what she did, and people started just giving to her. And in the comments on her fundraiser, people were saying this is because of Anthony Carmelo. And they were saying all kinds of things like it's time for the white race to rise up and we've had enough. And so you see these really racial divides coming. And I was on a live and I told people a lot of folks are chronically online, and I like to think that there's enough normal people in the world who aren't like this. I mean, there's obviously there's a lot of people in the world. There are people who said they were giving from all around the world, Sweden and other places. Like, yes, now is their time to fight back. And I'm like, is this legitimate? And then I went to like their Twitter and there was a bunch of not English there. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's not even just Americans who are contributing to this craziness and this racial division. So that those conversations are still continuing on. So Matt Walsh had commentary about it that has set the conservative sphere ablaze, because a lot of conservatives are like, no, you should not be sticking up for this lady. Like, she shouldn't have got doxxed, but what she said was terrible. And this doesn't need to be our hero, and no one needs to uplift her. And Matt Walsh was like, I'm glad it's happening because it's a criticism on cancel culture, and hopefully this kills cancel culture. So that was basically the gist of it. He wasn't making some kind of ultra woke narrative about like, oh, if they get to use the N-word, everybody should use. It was like, you should stop trying to cancel people via angry mob through the internet. So that was his pragmatic argument. Ben Shapiro talked about a response to Matt Walsh's video today. He mentioned a little bit and why he didn't think that would work out. And I think you need better heroes. I don't think her family's safety deserves to be justified, but I don't think you should go out of your way to be part of the problem and uplift this evil thing that she did. Now, people are saying, well, what she did was wrong, but it was nothing compared to Anthony Carmelo. I'm like, we don't have to compare them. People shouldn't have done what they did with Anthony Carmelo. And if people thought he was genuinely defending himself, which is so stupid, I don't know how you could get there. This is bias wrapping and warping everybody's mind. If you're looking at the different facts of the case, there's nothing that's come out, and there's not everything that we know, but there's nothing that has come out that could reasonably get you to the place that he was defending himself. But most people who are probably giving were motivated by some kind of racial thing. I try to give someone the benefit of the doubt there, but no, I think a lot of that is, even if they believe he was defending himself, I think that's that's skewed by their racial bias. But you don't have to then jump to this white woman calling a kid the N-word and being like, okay, well, that's our queen. Like we're gonna just give money to her as revenge. You know? So you don't have you don't have to do that. Again, I don't think she should have been recorded. I think that man is trash. I think what she said was trash. I don't think she should have said that to that kid. I think she should have found the parent and had words with the parent or whatever. There's people in Minnesota that are talking about all the Somalians who are there taking over their state, and they are like taking over the state. I don't know if you knew we covered the story when they changed the state flag, but they changed their state flag. And it looks very much like the flag of where a lot of people came from, as opposed to what it used to look before. So they are being taken over for sure. So there's anger and there's rage there, but she shouldn't have said what she said. So those conversations are now continuing. Okay. And I think I mentioned like where were the parents of the child before. Apparently they had a couple kids and that wasn't the one that they were watching. And the child doesn't look 5. I don't know how old they are. I don't know if it's ever been confirmed how old they are, if they actually had special needs or whatever. And the kid shouldn't have been messing with the other person's stuff. Kids sometimes do bad things. So that kid, he did look old enough to know not to rummage through things that didn't belong to him. But I don't know how old he is still. That, you say, hey, they don't belong to you. Like, what are you doing? And where's your mother? Where's your mother? And then you handle words with adults, okay? Anyway, Minnesota has a petition out to change the flag back. They should change the flag back. They should have changed it in the first place. They should not have changed it in the first place. What somebody that AK, well, I think his name is AK. I can't think of what else he goes by on Twitter and on TikTok. He's from Minnesota, and AK Kamara, he came on my show before to talk about some politics in his state. But I met him at the White House. Let me just show you guys who I'm talking about. I don't know if you guys remember when he was on the show. He was cool. He was like the only person that I saw that I knew and had a conversation with that I met at the White House when I went last time. So that was neat, though. A lot of my experience was being squished in that room waiting 2 hours for Trump to show up. So, but I haven't seen any of his content regarding it. I'll have to find. I'm sure he's probably said something about it. I'll have to find if he said anything and report back to you guys. But they've definitely taken over Minnesota. I hope they change their flag back. But he covered that a lot, along with other stuff. But anyway, I want to play this Piers Morgan's conversation and go from there.
Why would you want to support a white racist?
Because I want to support free speech, and you cannot have free speech in a country.
No, that's fine. You can support free speech, but you also have to be accountable for what you say. Would you use the N-word out of interest?
Yes.
You would?
Mm-hmm. I do, quite frequently.
You use the N-word quite frequently. Well, why? Other than the fact you're a despicable racist. Are you?
Some would say I am. I guess according to the ADL, I'm a white supremacist. I'm a neo-Nazi.
Well, if you use the N-word repeatedly, you are a racist, then, are you?
Sure, I'll embrace that. If that means forwarding, helping white people achieve freedom of speech, real freedom of speech, which, by the way, Shiloh Hendrix is being attacked on all fronts. They're trying to bring legal charges against her. They're trying to get her children taken away. So you were saying Carmelo Anthony, it doesn't matter. That's a different.
Sorry, but just to be clear, you just said to me you use the N-word regularly. In what context? Do you use it with black people?
Yes, if it's appropriate.
When would it be appropriate to use the N-word?
People.
When would it be appropriate?
Anytime I feel like it.
So you're an unashamed racist.
Correct.
Well, do you understand that makes you a despicable human being?
I guess so. I don't really care. I mean, why are we not talking about Shiloh Hendrix? Why are we talking about?
Well, actually, I think you've moved it on in this debate very quickly to your own racism, which explains why you've supported her in public and why you've got all these views. You see no problem with a woman shrieking the N-word repeatedly because you yourself are a despicable racist, and you've just proudly admitted that with a smug grin on your face, which is pretty horrifying, actually, for most people to have to watch. And shame on you. You're entitled to do it, and I'm entitled to call you despicable.
So, this woman here, the blonde who says she uses the N-word all the time, which, by the way, I know there's a lot of white people who use it all the time, and just in their vernacular, I think it's edgy. They think it's cool. Maybe they're cool with some black folks who don't mind it, or whatever. They say it in the music that they buy, which there was one artist who had a white girl come up on stage, and she was singing the lyrics to his song, which included the N-word. I can't remember which artist it was, but it was very viral at the time. And they're all like, "Oh, I can't believe you said it. Like, that's not cool." I think that's pretty messed up to put that in your music for mass consumption and not expect people to say the word when you say. They're just supposed to skip over it after you put it in the music. I don't think so. You don't put it in your songs if you don't expect your fans to sing the lyric. Okay, that's silly to me. That's silly to me. So I don't know in what context she's saying that she always uses the word, because she didn't go into detail. But I do know that Lily here is a bit of a performance artist, and she went viral after saying some really crazy, triggering things that were designed to get her a lot of attention. And I think that's why she's saying what she's saying and doubling down. And she's saying it's for free speech. I say it and I have to defend it because it's free speech. And, so there's folks like her, and I can't remember exactly what was the context of the video that she originally did to go viral, but she's parading around as if she's some kind of right winger, but the principles aren't really foundational in her. There's people who go up there and they say things to appeal to certain segments, but they're not rooted in any real principles. So she's going around free speech, all this stuff, but some folks don't actually believe in those values, and some folks just want attention, and they just want to be able to say whatever awful thing. But at the same time, there's some people who are like free speech, but then they don't expect you to be able to criticize you at all. Like Benny Johnson was very upset at people because they were upset at him because he had Andrew Tate on some time ago. He had Andrew Tate on, and also Alina Habba, is that Habba? Trump's lawyer. And they were on together, and she was like, "Ooh, I'm a fan," and drooling over him and stuff and giving him praise. And Benny Johnson, didn't ask him about all of his court cases or anything like that. They had him on to talk about how folks are attacking Donald Trump, and because he knows what it's like to be attacked, so he's a good person to come on the show to talk about how Donald Trump is being attacked. I think Donald Trump is being illegitimately attacked by people who are gunning for him with stuff that's false, the things that are exaggerated. I don't believe that's the case with Andrew Tate. So Trump's lawyer finding any kind of commonality with the two of them doesn't make Trump look good. It brings him down to like Tate's level, because there's some credible things against Tate, including things said by Tate that's all over the internet that you can find. Just if you go on Twitter, Milk Bar TV has a lot of compilations about the stuff about Andrew Tate. And there's no way that Benny Johnson doesn't know that stuff. There's no way he didn't know. And I'd be surprised if Trump's lawyer didn't know either. but I certainly wouldn't be saying I'm a fan of somebody if you haven't done any kind of research. But don't people know that he's famous for being at least a pimp? That's how he got his money. So why would you be a fan of that? And why would you say that while you're supposed to be representing the president of the United States? So we talked about that at the time. We talked about it at the time. So anyway, Benny Johnson was upset that people were talking about him and criticizing him for platforming Andrew Tate. And he's like, oh, you guys are trying to shut down my free speech. And no, people weren't trying to shut down your free speech. You can feel free to have on whoever you want to come on your program, but how you use your platform, how you use your power says a lot about you. Like if you're going to have this pimp come on who's accused of doing all these terrible things to women, and you don't mention that, you don't push back at all, and you just there to glorify him, uplift him, and help his fame, and I guess help your fame because he's on there, so you're getting clicks and views and all this stuff, and he still remains one of the top searched people that a lot of young men or whoever like to talk about. That says something about you, and people can feel 100% free to criticize you. Just because you use your speech to do stuff does not mean that people cannot criticize you, and you are not free from consequence. So there's a lot of advocates out there for free speech who don't like when others use their free speech to criticize them. So a lot of people are using the principle of free speech just to be able to say whatever they want and feel freely to say whatever they want, but they don't want others to exercise the same. So I think again, this woman saying that she says the N-word all the time is doing that because she, loves attention. And she said her first viral video that, got really big, she was also saying things. It didn't seem like she was rooting any kind of principles, but was saying kind of key words to target certain groups to just advocate for her and then try to defend her. So she'll say a crazy thing and people will feel like, no, we got to defend her right to say free speech because they're going to cancel her. And by the way, there's a guy right now, you guys may have heard about the story about Dave Portnoy, how there was a guy who went to one of his bars and had wrote on a sign like F the Jews. And so Dave at first was like gonna go in on him and try to, I guess, destroy him or whatever. And then he decided, he's like, oh, I'm gonna take him to Auschwitz and hopefully teach him a lesson. And then this guy decided to go on a like white supremacist podcast, and the guy was like, well, Dave Portnoy, not Mohammed Mokan is his name. Mohammed went on the podcast, and the podcast host, called Dave Portnoy well, he's a dirty Jew, and use slurs and racial content or whatever. And so now Dave Portnoy is just like, this guy is a scumbag. This kid is a liar. And now the kid has a GoFundMe. And now he's trying to raise money off of protecting his free speech. So I think there should be a concern that this is going to be a continuous grift that people have again and again and again and again of, I get to say terrible things. Oh, people are trying to hold me accountable for the terrible things that I say. Therefore, come and give me money. So I think we need to be careful about how we reward bad behavior. Again, I don't think Shiloh should have been exposed online. I don't think that, people, even if I don't think the third party person filming her should have did should have done what they did. But the truly crazy thing was people threatening her safety and doxing her information, finding out where she works out, and her daughter needing to change schools and other things like that. That's the crazy part of the story. If everyone wanted to come around and shame this lady socially or culturally, whatever, fine. Fine. There's another part that I want to show you guys with Piers Morgan goading Lily into saying it. She doesn't end up saying the word. So that's Mark Lamont Hill who's crashing out right there. You know, Piers Morgan goading her into saying like, well, if you want to live in that world, go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say, and she, to my knowledge, didn't. And Mark Lamont Hill making it all about him. He's like, I'm the only person here, and there's like Uncle Tom over here. I'm talking about the fresh and fit guy who is not a terrible person and who says racist stuff all the time, particularly towards Jews. Him crashing out, making it about himself wasn't a good look if they were trying to criticize the white lady there, Lily. Because her simply just saying the word in his presence doesn't mean that it's directly being thrown at him. And then while he's crashing out, he throws out a racial slur himself. Uncle Tom is a racial slur. It is a racial slur. It's not it doesn't have the impact as the N-word, but it's also a racial slur. Somebody said the video didn't play. Let me try it again. I'm sorry if it didn't play. I don't know why it didn't play. Oh, you know what? Maybe. Oh. Okay. Let me try it again. Give me 1 second. Okay. This should play.
And I don't want to live in a country where you can say an inappropriate, rude thing, which, by the way, Black people can say things to white people all the time and they never get canceled. There's no backlashing about this. I want to live in a country where people are allowed to say what they want unashamedly. And you will
well, go
not
on, then
have
say it. Say
you
the
will
M-
not have
Go on,
free
go on. Say the M word. Go on.
No.
Hang on.
Invite. No.
No.
I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me because I'm the only on here. So if she says it, I'm the victim of it. So please don't invite her for ratings to call me the N-word because that's basically what it's going to be. There's a bunch of white people up here. You and one Uncle Tom on the left here, and asking her to say the N-word while I'm here is ridiculous. You would not sit here with a Jewish person and say, please use a Jewish slur in front of this Jewish. It's ridiculous. I understand you don't have any bad intent, Piers. I understand what you're trying to do. But we already know she's racist. And I don't want to invite a racial harm to me.
I hear you.
And I don't.
So, gosh, there's so much to be said about this little clip, and I'm sorry I started talking before you guys got to see it. Okay, thank you for alerting me that it worked. So Piers was like, "Hey, you want to be able to say it? You want to be able for you to say it? Go ahead and say it. If you're that big and bad that you say it all the time and you don't care and you say it in front of Black people, just go ahead and say the word. Just go ahead and say the word." And Mark Lamont crashing out, it certainly didn't help what Piers was trying to do in that moment. And if she simply said the word to appease Piers Morgan, it doesn't mean that Mark Lamont Hill would somehow be the victim of that, which I the two of them in the middle, I would say are have said things that I would say are pretty anti-Semitic. So I don't think these two people in the middle lecturing the white lady here are I don't think the Fresh and Fit guy is lecturing her, but Mark Lamont Hill, I don't think he has a ton of space to talk about stuff. And you know, I think Myron is his name from Fresh and Fit. He has definitely said some racist things towards Jews. Piers Morgan gets the shadiest people together for panels to just go at each other like Jerry Springer style. And you could say it's good TV. Some people are like, oh, this is like the smartest thing on TV right now, Piers Morgan and what he's doing. I definitely don't think it's the smartest thing. It might be good for ratings. And I mean, people watch Jerry Springer and stuff like that, just like train wrecks or whatever. So I understand what he's doing as far as making good TV. I don't think this is good like discourse. Some of the people that he's choosing to platform and just kind of yell at each other and stuff. Like, but anyway, Mark, if she said the word, he's not a victim of her saying that word, and it doesn't mean that even if she said it, that it would be directed at him. So his crash out just sucked up all the oxygen in the room right there for me. And also he called Myron a slur. He called him a slur. Or is it Marvin? He called the Fresh and Fit guy a racial slur. Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom is a racial slur. It is taken from Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is a historical book that helped to actually, Uncle Tom was a heroic character in the book. So it's a shame that people have used it as a social slur, as a racial slur. It did far more to help Black people than Mark Lamont Hill could ever dream, because it helped to soften the hearts of many people in the North toward the slave, who were, I guess, kind of far removed from it, not thinking about it. In the Civil War, you know, the original sort of intention was to help, as far as the Union's efforts, was to keep the country together, but it evolved into something greater than that. And softening people's heart toward abolition, that book had a lot to do with it, on top of, you know, abolitionist ministers and preachers and, you know, advocates like Frederick Douglass and so on. They could never hope to live up to that great legacy, and it just got twisted and twisted and twisted until it became this racial slur, which, by the way, people call me that all the time. People call me that all the time. I get called racial slurs all of the time. There's so many slurs on that election night video with me and my sisters. So many slurs thrown at me by Black people, other Black people. So many of them. I kept them on for a while. There's some people I blocked or whatever, but there were so many toward me. So if Mark Lamont Hill is going to crash out, and granted, the N-word, Uncle Tom, they're not the same words, they're different. But if you're going to go have a crash out on TV about a racial slur, you probably shouldn't call someone else a racial slur. So I just look around and there's no heroes out there. There's just none. There's no heroes in any of the stories, bro. There's just no heroes here. But I do want to address, and I see an idea that it's just a word, because I've seen Matt Walsh say that, and other people say it's just a word. There was a video that he criticized. There's this Black guy addressing white people who were like, oh, you guys want to say the word? You just want the freedom to say the word whenever you want to, so go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say it to a Black guy, and they might punch you out or whatever. And folks were saying, it's just a word. You're letting everyone know that this word can cause you to do violence, and et cetera, et cetera. And words are not violence. you know, the folks on the left would say stuff like that, like, oh, you said this hate speech, all this stuff, it's violence. It's violent if you say this, it's violent. It's not the same thing when you say something versus you physically do something. But I don't like the overall narrative that words are just words, as if they don't hold power. Words have meaning, and words, we use them to communicate certain feelings, ideologies, and so on. For example, I don't like when people call me sis, not like sis like sister. I mean CIS. And I rejected that word. I wrote an article about why it is a slur. So I don't like that. And we don't like the pronouns of the she, her, him, he, because it's projecting a particular ideology. And we find that ideology to be harmful. And people will say, it's just a word. Why can't you just accommodate us and say this thing? Or why can't you just accept this word? It's just a word. And it's the reason why we can is because what the power is behind the word, the intention behind the word, and what you're trying to convey with the word. Words have meaning. And a couple weeks ago, I saw Dean and Parker, they're, Democrat influencers, and they were debating this kid, I think named Hayden, on transgenderism. And so they were saying, Dean and Parker were saying, well, they're using a different definition than you're using. And they were acting like that's the big mix up, just us not understanding the terms or whatever. And it's like, no, you guys are trying to take this word and mutate it in all kinds of different things. Like, it's not a big deal. And it's like, oh, it's just a misunderstanding of the word. It's like, no, but we understand what the words are supposed to mean and the power behind them. And that you guys are trying to use this word to control different policy, to force everybody into this ideology of a man is a man, a trans woman, is a woman, which isn't the case. And we know that we have to protect this word woman and who fits in there, because there are consequences to not respecting what that word means, So words do have meaning. So I don't like that. I don't know, just like, it's so flippant. Like, people don't care what words mean or what the intention is behind the word. I've heard plenty of people use the N-word, and there's some people who don't want to hear it at all, who want to just, people literally had like burying ceremonies for like figuratively trying to destroy the word, and like, we buried it and it's gone, it's dead, which is silly. People still use it. People still use it in songs. People say it to each other, people affectionately. I'm not overly sensitive about the word, but I can tell you an experience where we just moved into a very rural area and somebody called my sister the N-word, and guess what? They ended up with a bloody nose. And I approve. I approve because of the intention behind that word of when they used it, because words have meaning and the intention was clear. So it's just words when you're in a bar and which I, wouldn't recommend like going hanging out bars and stuff, but just using an example, and somebody is running up on your woman and saying a bunch of disrespectful stuff, and you decide to get into an altercation with the guy to defend the honor of your woman. Unless they make some kind of move, it was just words that are spoken, but some words warrant a reaction. Anthony Carmelo, one of the reasons why we're pretty sure he's not going to get off on self-defense is because of the words that he spoke that instigated Austin, when he said, touch me and see what happens. He was holding on to his bag, allegedly, which had the weapon in it, but saying, touch me and see what happens. He wasn't an innocent bystander that just, like they just randomly attacked him or whatever. He was instigating them to an action. He provoked them. So that changes the whole dynamic, the whole landscape of the case. He's not going to be able to say self-defense. He's not going to be able to say self-defense. So words have meaning. And let me go ahead and tell this story. when I was writing my book, The Color of God's Eyes, which if you read it, you know the N-words in there quite a bit. And my eldest sister was reading some of it, which by the way, I don't think she ever like finished it herself. But she was reading through it and she voiced a concern, and she said that she didn't like that the main character Charlotte was referring to the other Black people as the N-words. And I'm like, okay, what would they call them then? And I did a lot of research, and you know, I'm like, okay, no, there's evidence of Black people calling other Black people the N-words. It's what they refer to each other as, you know? And so, but I didn't want, if she felt that way, I'm like, gosh, what if I'm going in the wrong kind of route then? So I just, you know, got in my head about it. So I started discussing it with basically every Black person I know, like different family members, church members. I went to work. I worked at Micro Center at the time and was asking people in the break room. And some guy also had the same sentiment, like, what else? Of course, you got to use that word. What else would they call each other? That's what they would say. And so then I finally just sat down and had a conversation with my dad about it. And my dad said, you got to use it because there's no word like it. Like there's all kinds of different meanings that people ascribe to it, you know, affectionate kind of brotherly love, cool, whatever, you know, and then people turn it around and it's a word that is used to degrade. He's like, there's just kind of no word like it. So I went ahead and decided to put it in there. And it always kind of amazes me, you know, when I get feedback from people in person about the book. Usually this is like white people come up to me and they'll say they really love the book. They like the romance, they like the action and other kind of stuff, and they enjoyed Charlotte's story, but they'll say, but it was so difficult to read that word. And I don't know how much of that is like, and I don't mean to like, I'm just telling the story. I don't mean anything really negative toward my fans. I appreciate everyone who's taken the time to read the book, buy the book. I love you so much. I appreciate you. But I was thinking about this recently before this Shiloh thing even like happened, because I just thought it was interesting. I'm like, all the things that happen, and that's the thing that they voice that is so difficult to get through. There's somebody, I won't say specific things that happen to specific people in case someone wants to read it. I don't want to totally spoil it, but it's a plantation. Someone gets whipped. There's someone who's mauled by dogs. There's violence in the book. There's heartbreak in the book. All kinds of terrible things that happen in that book. And then the following one, there's great stuff in it. Like funny, there's humor, there's definitely romance, there's charming moments, but there's some violence in there and some very tough situations. There's no like essay in it, but there's just tough stuff that happens. And I'm like, all the things that they say that's tough to read, and the thing they point out is the N-word. and then even Grok, the Twitter AI, I asked him what about my book, like what's people say about it, and they're like, oh, it's historical fiction. They say that it has compelling characters and all this stuff, but the language is very harsh. And I'm like, the language is harsh. I don't have swear words in it. It's not vulgar. You know, if there's talk about, there's no sex scenes in it. There's some kissing and stuff like that. But it's very light compared to a lot of stuff. What it's talking about is the N-word. That's the harsh language. It defined my whole book by this one word. Not the whole book, but it's gone into that harsh language category, not because it has F-bombs or B words or anything like that. I don't even say words like that, but just because it has the N-word. And we as a society, we do view it as a different kind of word. It just It just is. So this Lily, she might use it on her everyday life. She might say it, you know, hanging out with friends, listening to music or whatever. She might feel it's appropriate to call someone it with a hard R. Because maybe she's racist. I think mostly she's an attention seeker. I'm not saying she doesn't say the word. A lot of people use the word. A lot of people use the word. Samuel L. Jackson, it's kind of a funny interview, but he was interviewing someone, this white guy, for one of his movies. It might have been, I don't know if it was Django or something else, but he's like, "You've never said the word?" He's like, "No, sir." He's like, "You've never said the word?" He's like, "No, sir." And he's like, "Say it." He's like, "Mm-mm." He's like, "Say the word." And he wouldn't say the word, but it was just kind of funny because Sam Jackson probably expects there aren't a lot of people who haven't said the word. I could see someone like Ben Shapiro thinking he's too highbrow to have ever uttered it, but a lot of people have said it. So I don't doubt that she has. But I think she mostly just wants attention. And she's getting it. And Piers Morgan's giving it to her, and I guess we're giving it to her now, but this opportunity opened up because he decided to have her on, but people are viral. He wants the ratings, and we continuously feed into the monster. Just like the con guy with David Portnoy now, he did something. By the way, he posted the video online himself about the F the Jews sign, which drew attention and criticism to himself. And now he's raising money because Dave Portnoy is attacking him after he asked for the attention himself. So I don't know. We have to stop feeding bad behavior or stop at least rewarding it. I think there are some people who need to be shunned and shamed even for things that they say. I don't think people should have their lives destroyed, like their physical safety harmed. I don't think that Shiloh should go to jail. I definitely still believe that altercation should have just been between her and her parents. I mean, the child's parents. And again, I don't think there's any heroes in the story. No heroes in the story. There's a question: do I think that she didn't say it out of having racism in her heart, but intentionally wanted to be offensive because she was angry? I think maybe she said it over and over and over again because she was angry. But people don't generally say the N-word with the hard R. They don't normally say it with a hard R. But by the way, I've been called that online quite a few times too. But I don't think anyone's ever said that word to me in person, though. I don't think anyone's had the guts to say that to my face. But she said he's acting like a bleep, so I called him a bleep. So she meant it as a negative connotation with it, with some kind of underlining terrible intention behind it. So she might have repeated it to just push back and because she was angry, but I think it was racial. I think it was racial. So anyway, I think I've exhausted this topic today. I want to talk about this Trump thing really quick. Trump will defend Biden's abortion pill rules in Texas case, is an article from Politico. The Trump administration is defending federal regulations allowing abortion pills to be available online and by mail, the Justice Department revealed on Monday, but rather than defending the Food and Drug Administration's rules for the pills on the merits, the DOJ argued in a filing with the Texas federal court that the 3 GOP-controlled states suing the agency lack standing and the case should be thrown out. Their claims have no connection to the Northern District of Texas, the DOJ brief said, in Idaho's, Kansas, and Missouri's challenge, adding that the states are trying to rely on an innocent legal argument in unrelated briefing to argue for new restrictions on the drug and accusing them of gamemanship. The states are free to pursue their own claims in a district where the venue is proper, the federal attorneys said, but the brief pointed to weakness weaknesses in the state's argument beyond standing, noting, for instance, that their challenge to FDA's 2016 action allowing the pills to be used up to 10 weeks of pregnancy rather than the previous 7 is outside the statute of limitations. The DOJ also slammed the challengers' claim that FDA rules allowing the pills to be mailed across state lines violate states' laws in Idaho, Kansas, and Missouri banning the use of pills in most circumstances. The mere fact that someone might violate state law does not by itself injure the government, Trump administration attorneys wrote. The states fail to identify any actual or imminent controversy over whether any of their laws are preempted. Well, I can tell you that people get these pills, man. Abolitionists Rising, they're in Oklahoma, I think. And it's like basically banned in their state, but they can get pills when they go up to different people in their state to do like wrestle, and they do advocacy, and they're like it's like illegal here, and they're like, we no, you can get pills here, and they have talked about how they can go online to different websites, get sob stories, and they can get pills mailed to them, to demonstrate that it's still going on. So when people talk about, people will do abortions anyway, and there'll be women with hangers and back alley abortions, which back alley abortions just always meant that people will go to the abortion clinic, but through the back alley, just not through the front. It didn't mean that people were like taking the hangers and doing it in the alleys. That's not what it meant. But if people did have secret illegal abortions, they would most likely do them via the pill. So if people think there's going to be all these women bleeding out because of the pill, that goes to show you that the pill isn't as safe as what people claim, which is the case. But yeah, they can, I'm sure that if they wanted to, they could prove that the pills are coming and crossing state lines in a way they're not supposed to. President Donald Trump said repeatedly on the 2024 campaign trail that he would take no federal action to limit the availability of abortion pills, arguing the issue should be left to states. This stance has angered anti-abortion groups that backed Trump's reelection, and they have vowed to continue pushing for federal restrictions on mifepristone, a drug used in roughly 2/3 of all abortions. Yeah, that's a lot. Trump's new legal filing. Before I read the end of the article, let me say this. Trump did say that he wouldn't do anything to limit the pill, and I know that he was doing that and just trying to take abortion out of the conversation as far as his election goes. And you can say maybe it was the right decision or not right decision or whatever. He did say what he said. So people being surprised and like, oh no. He did say that he was going to defend or not do anything to limit the abortion pill federally. After he got in, though, he did say something along the lines of he would have to look into it, So there's this new study that came out about it being more dangerous than people had tried to let on, because pro-choicers were trying to say that it was more dangerous than Tylenol and all kinds of nonsense. So we went through the study last week and read through a pretty lengthy article on it. But I'm not surprised, but this has got to. I've seen some statements from different pro-life organizations saying this is a mistake. I'm sure they're getting calls. I'm sure they're getting complaints, and I don't know if how the standing argument is or isn't going to work out for him or the case itself. But when Trump was saying that he doesn't want late-term abortions, that was the only thing that he would just kind of condemn. That's a very small percentage of abortions. It's still like a lot because 1% of a million is still a lot, but you're basically, if that's all you care about is that 1%, you're effectively just allowing abortion to just happen, or you're period. If you're gonna allow like 99% of them to occur, and you're not gonna stop, you could stop, at least in some way, the way that 2/3 of all abortions are done, and then you're not even though this pill itself is dangerous. Trump's new legal filing over the regulation of mifepristone indicates an emerging pattern with his administration legal strategy following the DOJ's move earlier this year to defend a core provision of the Affordable Care Act. The administration's stances in both cases surprised many by backing policies favored by Democrats, but at their core, they are about preserving executive power and preventing courts from second-guessing agency decisions. The government's stance in this case that the states lack standing also comes as the administration is fending off challenges from California and other Democrat-led states and could set beneficial precedent for those lawsuits. The American Civil Liberties Union said Monday that the Justice Department should not get a gold star for its position defending mifepristone from the state's challenge, noting that the Trump administration could still move to restrict access to the drugs in other ways, and I hope he does. If moving forward, the Trump administration stops defending the FDA's evidence-based decisions on mifepristone or orders the FDA to reconsider its regulations, and by the way, through the years, they've just lessened the restrictions of it, and they fast-tracked the approval of mifepristone in the first place. That would take the FDA's credibility and betray President Trump's campaign promise not to further intervene with abortion access, said Julia Kay, a senior staff advisor for the ACLU Reproductive Freedom Project. The case against the FDA was first brought by a group of anti-abortion doctors called the Alliance for the Hippocratic Medicine that argued the agency's 25-year approval of mifepristone and several policies since that made the drug more easily accessible should be overturned because the FDA didn't adequately consider the drug's health risks, which I think is true. By the way, the original Hippocratic Oath talked about not giving like a drug to cause an abortion, so FYI, in case you didn't know that. The Supreme Court ruled last year that the doctors lack standing, saying that their argument that they might have to treat women who took the pills and experienced complications was too speculative. Idaho, Kansas, and Missouri have since taken over the case, which is back before the Trump-appointed Texas U.S. District Court Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, who heard the original challenge. The states argued that they have an interest in protecting their citizens from potential health complications from the pills, and said that they also hurt financially by the pills because they cause abortions of fetuses that otherwise would have grown up to be taxpayers, an argument the Trump administration flatly dismissed in its Monday brief. That's not a well. Let me table that. The states failed to cite any precedent supporting their theory that they can sue over any policy that affects their potential future birth rate, the DOJ wrote. And that's the end of the article. I don't think that's a great argument. Like, it's killing our future taxpayers. I don't think that's a great argument to make. But the Trump administration is talking about giving $5,000 to new mothers because, you know, they want them to go and give birth because we have low birth rates. And I don't think that's a great policy. And I'll have to go into greater detail later. But if you do want to, I don't know, help with the birth rate, you could stop killing so many of the children who already exist. There's 1 million of them a year that get offed. So, you know, that's just a thought. Just a thought if you're so concerned about us not having X amount of people in the country. If you're concerned about replenishing the workforce and people growing up to be able to pay into Social Security, because Lord knows Republicans and Democrats don't want to touch it and reform it or whatever. It's just going to run out one day. So I guess there is a case to be made. I don't think, I don't know if that's legally that's going to stand up, but the best route to go. We haven't really argued, and Dobbs didn't really address personhood, and really we need the court to have an answer about that. I don't know if now is the time to do that. I guess I'd feel more comfortable with Alito and Thomas being on the court making that decision, but I don't think they're bold enough to say, hey, all living human beings are persons, therefore they're all entitled to, you know, to be protected. against deliberate, premeditated violence, and they can't have their right to life taken from them without some kind of due process. So anyway, someone said some of the drugs are life-saving medications for certain pregnancies that cannot come to term. Anyone who is deliberately trying to kill if it's a healthy mother, healthy pregnancy, healthy child, I guess healthy child could be if it's a healthy woman, healthy pregnancy, I don't think should be able to terminate. And I would consider that premeditated homicide. If it's an ectopic pregnancy, they usually they don't use, I mean, they use different methods to usually take care of that. So I'm not saying they wouldn't maybe use it for different quote unquote life-saving measures, but if your intention is for some kind of life style measure, and that's why you're actually having an abortion, I don't think you should be able to if the baby doesn't implant in the uterus, you do need to remove them. And I've had people in my family who've had ectopic pregnancies multiple times, and they get very offended when you compare that to an abortion, because usually when we're having a conversation about the topic of abortion, which, by the way, these different state laws that limit abortion exclude ectopic pregnancy, we're talking about the premeditated killing of the child where you don't need to do that. When it's like life-saving measures or whatever, people understand that. So, I know sometimes abolitionists or pro-life people will say there's no reason to have an abortion, period. What they don't mean that you don't take life-saving measures. What they mean is that the measures that you would take would not be for the purpose of deliberately ending the child's life. They're just kind of using terms on a different kind of way. They don't mean that people should die. But healthy mother, healthy pregnancy, don't kill a child. I say just go ahead and grant the exception of life for the mother. I don't care if you go ahead and just use that language, I guess, but because it hardly happens anyway. It hardly happens anyway. That's a very, very, very tiny percentage of women getting abortions. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktoonies.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream. We're on the side, all the good stuff. If you guys can support, I very much appreciate you guys. Appreciate the conversation, appreciate your comments, appreciate you guys watching live. Really appreciate you guys. And to those of you who watch back later, you guys can go check out different merch on the site, like the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For shirt, Be Better Not Bitter. Sure, where's that shirt? There's too many people out here being bitter. And it really embracing this racial division and tribalism and stuff. And I didn't say this about the Shiloh thing. I've said it before in the Anthony Carmelo thing. There's so many people who are so focused on tribal sort of revenge and tribal politics that we don't even look at sort of what individuals do. Like there's a lot of people who are pro Anthony Carmelo because he's black, and they're thinking about like, oh, we ain't dealing with no Rosa Parks days and 400 years and all this disrespect, and you can't just be blah blah blah. And he did an evil thing, and if you switch the races, or they're the same races, or if it was your child who was killed, you would say there was nothing that warranted that much aggression that ended with your child being dead. That's what you would say. So just look at individuals sometimes. You don't have to look everything through some kind of lens of race. I'm not saying that racial considerations and that sort of nuance can't ever come into conversations. Obviously it does, but there's so many people who just want to fight for their side and fight for racial stuff. And whether it's right or left, it's just too much. We have to still remember individuals and their actions and take that into account and not try to do like the mob justice of stuff online like that, because stuff before the internet, the stuff would have been handled locally, and you know, word would have got around, and maybe they'd be a social pariah in their town. But trying to dox people and people's social security and stuff being leaked, it's insane. It's insane. Anyway, I don't want to go into another rant. I mean to close out. So thank you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.